never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
It's Sunday evening. That means it's time for the Georgia show. Welcome in. Sorry for a slight delay if you were sitting there waiting on us. We are masters of technology here at Dawgs HQ. I mean, Rusty heads up our IT department, and we really do a great job with it.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in this evening. Welcome to Dawgs HQ. This is the Georgia show. I'm Jake Roos. He's Rusty Mansell. This is what we do every Sunday night. A welcome into everybody tuning in. An interesting weekend for Georgia, Rusty. One that I don't think a lot of people probably had circled the way that it went. 33.5-point spread on that one, and it ends up being a 10-point game. I did not have a chance to watch it live. I was at a wedding yesterday evening, and to be honest with you, I kind of wish I had just not gone back and watched it, but I did today. And there was not just – it was such a mixed bag to watch that game, man. Because and I watched your post game afterward with Fox 5, and you said, look, if you had given me these numbers, you said 41 points, all this yardage, it's a slam dunk. You would have think they would have covered the over easily.
No doubt.
Not so much the case. What went wrong? What was the biggest thing that went wrong for Georgia in your mind last night, Rusty?
I think what surprised me, I went back and watched it again today. I think what surprised me the most, couple penalties, you know what I mean? And that's just something that you don't see out of Georgia. You had a holding penalty on Monroe Freeland, I believe, that called a touchdown back. Then they had to go kick a field goal on that series. Damon Wilson gives up a roughing the passer, which was, you just don't need to do that. You don't have to shove the quarterback. You get off the field. Well, when you don't get off the field, Mississippi State scores. Then you have another penalty on a perfect blitz, dialed up a blitz. And I don't really blame Chaz Chambliss for this because, it happens in football, but, you get a face mask, which leads to a personal foul. And guess what? They scored on that possession. So you're off the field. 2 of those touchdowns, you're off the field on those possessions, and you weren't able to do it. And just something that you usually don't see out of Georgia. I think defensively for Georgia, I see some people in the comments already asking about DBs. I went back and watched the DBs today, and I thought Daniel Harris Daniel Harris had a pretty rough showing yesterday. I don't know the grade and all that kind of stuff, what he actually got, but he looked bad on that ball. And listen, up until that point, I think that was the 5th offensive possession for it was a 5th offensive possession for Mississippi State. They had 12 yards on 4 possessions. I mean, Georgia had them dialed in. You give up a chunk play, it happens. The problem is the way he gave it up. I mean, his guy was wide open. He was 4 yards ahead of you and, just really kind of jump-started them. But I went back and watched the DBs today, and the one thing I'll say is the head-scratcher there is they're not playing terrible coverage. They're just not winning any 50-50 balls. I mean – and that's where you're like, how does that happen? These are elite athletes. These guys are highly recruited. They can all run. They are all 6-foot corners. They all look like what Kirby Smart has recruited in the past. They just haven't made any plays on the 50-50 balls. And, you just kind of, I'm not the DB expert and what they do every day, but I know that Kirby Smart is a DB guy. I know that Will Muschamp, who still works at the University of Georgia, who still practices Monday through Thursday with this football team before he takes the weekend off to go be with his son every weekend, that's a great deal for Georgia. So, and then you got T-Rob and you got Dante Williams. You got all these guys in there. There's a lot of DB guys on that staff because you got to say Kirby Smart's a DB guy, period. No question. He's a DB guy. So, looking at all that, it's kind of a head scratcher, man, where they are with that. I know everybody's ripping the corners, and I don't know that it's terrible coverage. I'm just kind of surprised they're not winning any 50-50 balls, man.
Yeah, it's strange. It doesn't, they're just not, they're not getting around when they need to. Like you said, Harris gets hurt on that one. And that honestly, a really bad thing for him because he was used sparingly throughout the game. He was not in on a lot of snaps. I believe Ellis Robinson, if I'm not mistaken, out-snapped him. I think Ellis had 9. I think Harris ended up with 6 on the day.
6,
So, and that's probably not going to help his chances moving forward. But, I agree with you. It's so strange to see. And now, look, I will say this too. credit where it's due, man. The Van Buren kid put
Dude.
a couple right where they had to be.
Dude.
The Kevin Coleman kid is outstanding.
And Georgia recruited him hard. Now Georgia recruited him hard. If you remember, out of East St. Louis, I think he was a high school teammate of Dominic Lovett.
I believe that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he's a hell of a player now. That one they got over on Aguero on the sideline that they went back and reviewed. I mean, that was a freaking dime, man. That wasn't on Aguero. There was no play he could make. That kid was through a perfect ball. So there's a little bit of credit where credit's due. Now, I'm not sitting out here and saying Miss State's world beaters. They're a bad team. They have a lot to work on, a lot to clean up. But that was their Super Bowl, and they're going to give Georgia their best game, just like everybody else is this season. Georgia, I agree with you, Rusty, had some costly penalties that really shifted the tide. Just time and time again, that was the problem for them. Is like you were done and you had it. You take 3 penalties off of this. I think the face of this game looks completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah, I really think that they shot themselves in the foot in a big way with that. Offensively, Carson Beck, I mean, huge numbers, right? I mean, it was a ton of passing yardage. It was ridiculous in that regard. 459. But he throws 2 INTs and not good ones. Rough couple of picks there. Is it timing? Is it the guy supposed to be there and he's not? Is it the one to me? The second one to me.
I lost lucky.
Yeah, that one did not look like a situation like the Arian Smith interception in Alabama, right? Where it was like that was a missed timing. I think pretty clearly. He thought Arian would be there. I thought the lucky one, he just threw it in a bad spot. Yeah,
it's bad. I mean, the first ball got tipped, and those are just hard to deal with, and that's just part of it. But that ball in the red zone, you're up 34-17. You're about to go up 41-17. Well, you throw that one, instead of being up 41-17, it's 34. They go right back down the field and score, make it 34-24. Then you got a freaking game on your hands. So I think you don't ask Carson Beck to throw it that many times. That's not in the game plan. But I will say this, it looked like after one quarter that Mike Bobo said, the hell with this. Well, we can't run the ball. I don't know what, but we're going to fix them to air it out. You know what I mean? And because they turned it loose at that point. And they had some chunk plays and they had some reverses. And I thought they had some really good offensive plays there trying to get that. But the bigger thing was you can't establish the run, man. And I don't know, because I really like the running backs. Unfortunately, I sit there and told a guy beside me, I said, man, Branson Robinson looks like he's healthy for the first time this year. And I'd be damn, a quarter later, he takes a shot on the lower leg. And just from where he was, I was like, man, that's a brutal hit. And sure enough, Kirby Smart said it's at least an MCL. So we'll know more on Monday what the deal on that is, I'm sure. But tough break, man, because he's fought his butt back to get back. And then you look at him, and yesterday he looked like he had some twitch to him. You know what I mean? He's not just an old lumbering like fullback, basically. So, offensively though, man, I mean, you get 620 yards in an SEC game and score 41 points. You can't
There's not
lose.
much more you can do.
You can't lose that. You can't lose that game. And that's where, it's just been a head scratcher, man. This year has been so crazy, so weird. But particularly Georgia defensively. And I'll say this before we start digging in these corners, I want to say this. They got to get pressure, man. They had a sack yesterday. They got taken away on a penalty, couple of pressures here and there. But that right now, and here's another thing too, man. Smile Munden being out, he was their best blitzing linebacker. They have used Smile Munden to blitz forever, and he's not there. So somebody else has got to take that role up. But they have got to dial up pressure. Yesterday was that kid's second start ever, and I'm telling you, he was a deer in headlights for a quarter and a half. Like, he couldn't hit a thing. He missed some throws in the first of the game. They had guys open too now. But he was a deer in headlights until he hit that bomb on Harris, and then he got some confidence in him, and they just started taking chunk plays. So, you can't cover guys in the SEC that long. You just can't. You know what I mean? But when a 50-50 ball is there, you got to win some of those. But to help them DBs a little bit, man, you got to get some pressure. And I think that's the biggest thing right now that Georgia, Michael Williams, I don't know what's going on with him. I mean, I watched him. If you watch the replay, the first third down that he goes in, you watch him come off the ball, and he comes off the ball okay. the plays away from him on the opposite side, I want you to watch him try to run that down, and he's clearly limping. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's not healing right. I don't know if he had a little setback. I know he has aggressively tried to get back. And what did he play? Your snap count yesterday had him at what?
I think he was at about 11, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 11.
It was a real small share. And I wrote in the notes afterward, I said, I'm not sure if this is indicative of where he is in the process, or if this is a situation where maybe you try to hold him back a little bit and let him go push it a little harder against Texas like he did against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to get what
that's the most significant snap share we've seen him have since the injury.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday he looked, I would say, 3/4 speed. You know what I mean? And this is a week you need him. And unfortunately, I don't know what he's going to be. We'll have news on that all week and try to figure it out. He's been trying to go. And, you know, at Georgia, you're going to practice. Now, you don't have to have 60 snaps in practice and Bloody Tuesday. You're not going to be there in one-on-ones. But, you know, those types of deals are where, you know, you got to get this guy ready. But you got to get some pressure man to help these DBs, period. I will say it. And like everybody else, I don't, you know, I think you got to give Ellis Robinson a shot. I don't know if that's that nickel part where Daniel Harris has been playing, the third DB, but you got to get this guy in there and see what he can do, because right now it's just not working, and you got to have a little bit of juice in there. I think Ellis Robinson, give him a shot, see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Shake it up a little bit. Mike Harvey over here with a question. We'll hop to that in just a little bit, Mike. We're going to touch on Texas for sure. Big week on tap for the Bulldogs in that regard. We've been touching on the secondary, so we won't continue to beat those guys up and belabor the point. But it is, look, it's like you said, man, it's very, very strange. It's been odd almost how they've struggled with the 50-50 ball. And I wish there was an answer for that. There just isn't. I do have an answer for you, though, if you're trying to get some tickets.
A lot of people asking me. Here you go. Here you go.
Yeah. If you're trying to get in, get some tickets, right? This is a big week. You got to go over to our friends at gametime.co. Gametime.co. That's the place to go get them. Listen, they got you covered on everything, right? It doesn't matter if it's concerts. It doesn't matter if it's sports. It doesn't matter if it's Georgia, Texas, even. We'll take a look at this. I think that we're going to be surprised where this thing is going. Yeah, I thought so. I wanted to see where these numbers were going to fall. And listen, here's the thing, right? With Game Time, you know that it's the best price guarantee. So this is the best price we're going to get into the stadium. So you can get around here. You can see the view from every one of these seats, man. And listen, I've used them a couple of times now myself. The views are accurate. Like I said, the process is seamless. You get your tickets like that super quick. Gametime.co, man. They do a fantastic job over there. Great friends of ours. Get over, check out the app. Because like I said, you can see all of this on the app. You can see the seats. You can see the extra deals, where the good deals are, and all-in pricing. It'll tell you from the top where you can go. So go over, download the Game Time app, take the guesswork out of buying your tickets, create an account, and use our code ON3, that's ON3, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code ON3 for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And
I like one of our Dawgs HQ subscribers today said, look, they're flying in Wednesday. He said his wife's got 10 wineries set up for the next 3 days. And he goes, look, I'm not even going to argue. I'm going to take the L for the price that we paid for 3 tickets. I'm just going to take the L and go to some wineries for 3 days. So not too bad a deal. But, you know, we put a post up on Dawgs HQ about who's going surprised. I'm not surprised because Georgia fans have circled this game the minute they announced it. But there are going to be a ton of Georgia fans. I even have friends that have kids in school, and they're flying out to Austin. They don't have any tickets. They're just going to be out there, especially when they announce the game day is going to be there. I mean, it's going to be everything you could possibly want. All eyes will be on Texas and Georgia next weekend.
Yeah. Before we get to that, though, there's a little housekeeping we got to do for a huge weekend of recruiting. Because listen, I say what you want about Mississippi State, say what you want about the ability to sell that game. Georgia put together a hell of a visit list for this one, man. They brought in some really talented guys for this one. they seem like they had most of Alabama's commit list there between 25 and 26. Several of those guys in town. Great update from our guy Jeremy Johnson over on Dawgs HQ with Anthony Rogers, the 4-star Alabama running back commit. Man, that kid can go, and definitely a guy that is intrigued by what Georgia has to offer. I'm intrigued to see how that one plays out, but I think, Rusty, if we're going to talk it, we got to start with Elijah Griffin, 5-star defensive lineman, and the decision will come this Friday. We will all find out together, and he will announce it. He's still on campus in Athens.
Right now.
It showed up on Saturday, so he's taken a little bit, taking that 48, stretching it into tomorrow. So no thoughts from him just yet, but you got to feel kind of good, right? I mean, if he's coming off of his official visit and he's going to make the decision.
I've been doing it a long time. If you announce that you're going to commit on Friday and you're on campus for another school for 24 hours, either you got a real set of stones or you know where you're going. Because that somebody in the building's going to go, hey, man, I just saw you announcing. Are we good? You know, what's going on? So this one's made no secret about it. I mean, Dawgs HQ subscribers know this. I think we all have. We felt good about Georgia for a while. I think there was a point in March a little bit that USC really took a swing here, and I'll say that with kind words. They took a real swing at him. Miami has definitely been involved. The sneaky school that really didn't make the end was South Carolina. He went over to South Carolina a lot, especially in the last 6-8 months. Not far from him, but had a teammate, friends over there. So I feel good about Georgia. We'll find out Friday. This is the nation's #1 rated defensive line. #1 defensive lineman in America for on 3, has been for a long time. Georgia offered, I believe, at the end of his 8th grade year. Yep. When I tell you he has an entire circle with him in Athens this weekend, he's got an entire circle. And I believe that Georgia is the only school that he took his grandmother to. Now, I know I went to public school, and I know that my SAT probably wasn't where everybody thought it was at one point, but that's a pretty good damn sign. When grandma's been up there, when grandma has sit in Kirby Smart's office and had to look him in the eye, that's usually a pretty good sign.
And listen, Elijah Griffin loves his grandma. We do know that. That is a well-established fact in the recruiting world. So good news in that regard. Look, I've had the pick-in since March. I feel good about it. I'm not going to sit here and him and haw over it. You can go see it on his profile. I put it out there. It is what it is. I mean, I think that a lot of people have felt good about Georgia for a long time. And like you said, if you're going to announce that you're going to commit while you're on your official visit, you're going to burn some bridges if it's not going to be to that school. So I think you gotta be handle that one with some interesting gloves if you're going to go that route.
Now, his mom is, his family, and my man DGD podcast there, as much as Bobby Boucher loves his mama. Yeah. I'll tell you that when I went down to first see him in the spring of 10th grade, I took a trip. I was at 24/7 at the time. I just had all those guys, Jake Merklinger, the entire Southeast. I went to see Elias Williams at Camden County at the time. He was at Charlton County. Long story short, I went to the school to see him at Savannah Christian, and his mom came by. She wanted to hear the interview, make sure I had the right quotes and everything. So this young man has got a lot of people around him that keep him straight and narrow. But on Friday nights on the football field, this is a bad dude now. I'm telling you. And I hope that my guess is right now, if Georgia does get him, you're going to see him on TV multiple times, if not in the state championship. I had him scheduled for TV a couple weeks ago. Weather got it. So those guys will be he'll get Georgia fans get a chance to see how special this guy is. And I know everybody fights and clamors, and we got to have a Jalen Carter, and we got to have a Jordan Davis, and we got to have a Devontae Wyatt and all of them. And I'll just say this, coming out of high school, he has that type of tools. He has that frame. He has that type of get off. Now, does he develop into that? But I can say without hesitation, this is an elite defensive lineman, and there's only about 5 to 6 of these types per class. And right now, On 3 has him ranked #1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the player comparison on his profile, it's Derek Brown.
Yeah, so I kind of think so too. Yeah.
And not only is it Derek Brown, but there's also like the little caveat included to say this is Derek. We compare him to Derek Brown, but we think he's more athletic than Derek Brown at the same time, which is a bold statement. I didn't write it. I didn't write it.
Yeah, I got you. You start talking about a guy that's a top 10 pick. That's why I stay away from the Roquan comparisons. You know, everybody says next linebacker is Roquan, but Roquan's a top 10 pick. It doesn't mean that Elijah Griffin can't be a first round draft pick and be really good. But when you say he's better than Derek Brown, I don't want to put that on a kid because that was one of the most dominant defensive linemen. And bless his heart, he's on a terrible Carolina Panthers team. If he's anywhere else, everybody in the world knows about Derek Brown. But I certainly think Elijah Griffin, if Georgia gets him, you know, this is one of those guys that Georgia's missing right now, kind of a game wrecker and a guy that I think is going to be, you know, a handful. I think Elijah Griffin is a kid that can play early. And I don't say that about defensive linemen. You know my motto, my theme, if you ever follow my work, the further away from the ball, meaning the further away from the center you are, the easier you can play as a freshman. It's hard for these younger guys to get in there. But I think Elijah Griffin, if he goes to Georgia, is immediate help to Georgia, especially next year defensive line.
I would agree. I would have to agree with that. Chase Linton also makes it to town. Big edge rusher, formerly committed to Rutgers, but things – listen, I'm not smacking Rutgers here, but things took a turn where it was clear he was not going to Rutgers anymore because of the way that things began to develop for him out of North Atlanta High School. You've consistently heard Georgia again coming out of that decommitment. You know, I don't expect that we're going to hear anything different coming off of this weekend. Alabama looks like they are making a real play there, though, too, for Chase Linton.
Georgia Tech, LSU offered. Sure. I'll say this. I have been around him since he was a sophomore. Know him and his mom. And this is one of those kids that are very polished, very, very high academic kid. Just kind of kept growing in his body, got better and better and better. And, you know, he's a nasty football player, man. And that's what you want. You want a high character kid. You want somebody that's going to be really good academically that will tear your, you know what, up on Saturdays. Now, I think Georgia's in a good spot here, but this might not be one of those ones you're going to hear about from a while. He's definitely doing his due diligence. That LSU offer, from what I was told, is kind of one that's got his attention. I believe, Bruce, that he'll be at Georgia Tech next weekend on an OV for them too. So this one's not over. I think Georgia's in a good spot right there. I think it's pretty clear to see what Kirby Smart has done, and that has put a massive focus on in-state kids.
Yeah, no question about it. Absolutely. Especially coming down the stretch here, right? I mean, you're talking about Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry, Chase Linton, the Braxton Kyle kid,
Anthony Crua.
Anthony Crua, another guy committed somewhere else, right? UNC commit shows back up this weekend. How does that end up playing itself out? I'm curious, Rusty, do you have any thoughts on these Alabama commits, the Rogers or Dijon Lee, or you get Dorian Barney back this weekend? I think Dorian Barney is a 26, so he's got a little while. Right. He's got a little while. I think Dijon Lee's the kid that I think Georgia's second. I think Georgia's the second again. You know what I mean? It's just, I stated it before, there's no points for second place. And this is a 5-star DB out of Mission Viejo, California. He has ties to Georgia staff and Alabama staff. But right now, they got him back this weekend. I think it's one of those deals where he's just making sure Alabama's the pick for him. And Georgia needs to keep chipping away, man. Just keep chipping away on him and see what happens in December. But right now, I feel like he's going to stick with stick with Alabama. And see if they can keep, because Dante Williams went out there to see him during the first bye week. So, and Georgia got in this weekend. So it doesn't hurt, but, you know, just kind of read the tea leaves on him. I think he's going to wind up sticking with Alabama so far. We'll see what happens the rest of it. Turbo Rogers, man, he's already said to visit Ohio State. So that's going to be one of those ones that we have to watch in December. I think Georgia absolutely would take him. But I think for me, I would rather have Dijon Lee at defensive back than I would another running back, because this young man at Georgia's got committed from Lee County, and Bo Walker is at Raven Gap now. I feel pretty good in their running back commits. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I think, Rogers too, look, it's an Alabama kid, right? I mean, he's from Alabama.
Hard to get those, man.
It is. It's tough. It is what it is with that. So, Big weekend, though. It was huge. You got Texas coming up this weekend. They'll get Justice Terry will be on the sidelines for that game out there watching with the Longhorns as a guest of the Longhorns. So that's interesting. He seems like he's been able to find Georgia at every turn, doesn't he?
I'm telling you, man, I want to hang out with Justice Terry. I mean, this dude, he's going to all the best games. You know what I mean? I'm like, let's roll, man. What time are we leaving this weekend? But I think so. Weird schedule in high school football, all over the place. State of Georgia, they're going to go 2 weeks without playing a game. And so this will be the second week without a game. I am told that he will be back for the next game of Manchester. And if the Manchester coaches are watching, and I'm not supposed to say that, I apologize, but I'm told he'll be back. He's been dealing with a sprained MCL. He had something he dealt with. So he'll be back. And, I was counting games. If they play in the state championship, he will get, I think, 6 more games or 7 more games. So, he's got time, and he'll be able to have some senior year before he makes a decision. But Justice Terry needs on them old school concert T-shirts. You know what I mean? Like the date where you were, where you were this weekend and all that. Because my man's taking those trips now.
The world tour is on, no question, man. Absolutely. He's going to play Budokan next, I think. All right, we do want to get into Texas, but before we do that, we got to shout out one of our other friends out there, and that's Andy Ludicky and the boys over at MyPerfectFranchise.net. Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands, or you're an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Well, Andy Ludicky and MyPerfectFranchise.net can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services, 100% free to you. What do you got to lose? Find your perfect franchise today at myperfectfranchise.net. Shout out Andy and the boys over at My Perfect Franchise. Rusty, it's here. We've been waiting on this one. There were 2 games, I think, that everybody had circled all year. The first one did not go your way, and then there was this one. And then the hype is going to be immense. I would say if you've been thinking about joining Dawgs HQ and you haven't, wait till tomorrow morning. And
wait till tomorrow morning.
Maybe a little something that we can help you out with on that. It's early in the week. I'm sure we're going to get a better feel of this over the course of the week. But initial thoughts going into what is going to be a raucous environment at DKR, college game day in town. I mean, this thing is going to have it all, Rusty.
The game day kicker's got to be Matthew McConaughey. It's got to be, right?
I would think so. Have
to be. This is one of those games you think like this is perfect scenario for Kirby because everybody's just going to be nobody's picking Georgia this week nationally. Like nobody. They're going to get ripped on Feinbaum all week. They're going to get nobody's going to pick them. So you get all the rat poison you could possibly scoop up. And I know that the coaches say, hey, we don't worry about that. The hell you don't. I've been in some locker rooms. I've been around some coaches behind the scenes, and heck yes, that stuff is all over the walls and it's playing on video screens all week. So they're going to get a little bit of that. And but I'll say this early on. Let me be real clear here. And you can quote me and you can tweet me and you can do whatever. Georgia can win this freaking game. Like Georgia can beat Texas. They have the pieces to beat Texas. They're going to have to play a complete football game. They're not going to play a Johnny Manziel beating Alabama out of your mind game.
Right.
They have to play a solid, complete, both sides of the ball football game. And they haven't done that yet. I mean, it's either been the defense has had some spurts and then not played well. The offense has struggled, especially in the first half in some games, and then they've played well. Everybody has got to go here. I'll say this too. This is a game where Kirby Smart, there's nothing you leave in the bag. Like everything's on the table. This is not a national championship game at all, period. It's not. But you approach this game like that, and you tell your coordinators, we're not leaving anything in the bag. Let's blitz. Let's make our throws. If we got a trick play that we like, against a certain set, we run that. But you don't go into panic mode. You don't have to play out of your structure, so to speak. But this is a game where you go in as a coordinator and Kirby Smart looks at you and says, hey, we're going to go for a couple of fourth downs. Okay, so
Right.
have your mind right. Or Glenn Schumann, like, hey, we're going to dial this thing up because Quinn Ewers is not going to beat us with his feet. Now, this guy's got an elite arm. He's smart. He can hurt you a lot of ways. He's got just enough feet to hurt you, but he's going to be there. You can get home on this guy, but we got to get there to get him to the ground and help our DBs. So they got to play a really, really good game, but I don't want people to take this and run with it and say they got to play something out of their mind, because they don't. They've got the pieces to win this game. They've been in big battles. They've been on the road. This is a big-time environment. This is why you come to Georgia to play in games like this. This is why Dominic Lovett comes from Missouri. This is why London Humphreys comes from Vanderbilt. Trevor Etienne
comes from
Trevor
Florida.
Etienne. You know what I mean? But he came to Georgia to play in a game like this. And so, you know, these games are here. And you know, it's big boy football. But I want to kind of caution people to, you know, you're gonna hear it all week that Georgia's gonna get around the building, and Georgia very much can win this football game, but they got to play a complete one.
Yeah, I you know, the thing about it is, and this is just kind of in the back of my mind, I'll tell you this: I'm probably going to pick against Georgia.
I did before the season started. Yeah.
I probably will pick against Georgia again in this one. But this college football season has been so upside down and so stupid and so insane that it wouldn't shock me if they came out and stomped a mud hole in them. I mean, you know, it's gone both ways, right? I mean, it's like the unexpected has been kind of the theme this year. And in Georgia, the unexpected thing would be for Georgia to play its first complete game of the year in every facet. And we just haven't seen that to this point. I'm not saying I think that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying it won't shock me if that is what happens. It's huge. I mean, it's not the end all be all either. I mean, you lose this one, you're still in the hunt. That's how the playoff structure works now. So but there's a lot on the line, right? I mean, this is big. This means a lot. This means a lot toward conference superiority in terms of, you know, who's running the show these days. I think that's important. There's a lot of narratives that are going to come out of this game one way or the other for either side based on what happens. So, like you said, there's going to be plenty of rat poison to sell. There's going to be plenty of there's going to be probably more talk about this game, I would think, than there was about Georgia Alabama lead up. Just because we've seen Georgia Alabama, we haven't seen Georgia Texas in a long time.
And I'll be honest with you, I mean, Oklahoma has a really good defense. Their offense is struggling, and they played without 5 of their top 6 wide receivers yesterday with a freshman quarterback. They just ran out of gas. Defensively, they didn't play too bad. They just ran out of gas. They're on the field too long. I'll say this is the best team Texas has played by far, by far. So there's a lot of people going to tune in to see, is Texas really the dominant after Ohio State loses last night? Is Texas really the alpha team in America? And you know, so there are going to be some questions answered about Texas too. So, you know, there's a lot. We'll talk about this thing all week, but I really just want to say, have people, you know, just kind of caution and say, hey, Georgia hadn't put the pieces together, and Georgia's not as good as they were last year. They just weren't. They're not.
Yep.
It still doesn't mean they can't win this freaking football game. I'll say this: if they lose this game, they can win out and go to the playoffs. Georgia makes the playoffs at 10-2. I have no idea what the seeding is, but if they lose this game, Jake, they have zero margin for error the rest of the year.
Oh,
they got to win.
100%.
It's like Ole Miss is right now. Ole Miss has got to win out, meaning Ole Miss has got to beat Georgia.
Yep.
So if Georgia were to lose this game, they got to win out, and that means beating Tennessee at home. It means beating Florida in Jacksonville. That means beating Georgia Tech in Athens at night. That means beating Ole Miss in Oxford. You got to run the table, but without a doubt, Georgia gets in at 10-2. So you want to win this one for a million reasons, but it also puts you in a great spot in the SEC, and it puts you with a massive win going toward the playoffs. Georgia would be a heavy favorite to make the playoffs by win this game this weekend in any shape, fashion, or form.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. At that point, yeah, you would have a lot of margin for error, I should say. It's it's like you said, man, it's huge for so many reasons. And it's going to we're going to learn. I think you're going to learn everything you need to know about both of these teams this week.
Yeah.
You're going to figure out if Georgia listen, and I've been thinking about this all day, reading the message boards and seeing the tweets. This is probably one of the most derided 5-1 teams I have ever covered. I've ever seen, really, nationally. I mean, people are down on this Georgia team, and they continue to win. And I mean, they're a whisker away from 6-0. I mean, this is there's something to be said for that. I'm not saying that a 10-point scrape by on Miss State is what you want to see, but there's something. Listen, like Al Davis said, baby, just win, baby. I mean, that's all it is at the end of the day.
What is Georgia won 28 in a row at home?
I believe that is correct.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
That's damn. I mean, that is absolutely nuts. So the last game they lost was South Carolina in 2019.
Yes.
2019.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, listen, Kirby Smart's created this. You know what I mean? And there's a reason why he makes $13 million a year now, because a 10-point home SEC win, and people are pissed.
Yeah.
People are pissed. People are ready to. They won't take me and Jake Rowe. In the thread last night, I mentioned that Jurasic had a really good block, and I've been one of his biggest critics. Like, this guy, he made a really good block on a crackdown, and Nate Frazier got 13 yards, and I just put on the board, hey, he made a great block, and I felt like I was going to have to get, I thought I was going to get walked to the car last night. So. But it is what it is, man. And people care. It's all we have jobs. But I just want to give everybody a little bit, listen to this all week, a little bit of caution, what you're going to hear all week. And Jake, I think that's a great point. I think when this game is over, we're going to know who the Georgia Bulldogs are. We got enough sample size. They've played Alabama and Texas now, even with a big win against Clemson in their back pocket. If Georgia goes up there and gets beat 37-34, this ain't a moral victory team, but we know what they can do. You know what I mean? We know down the line, this team right here can play with anybody in America, this particular roster. So, we'll see where it is, but I think we're going to know more about Texas, which there's still some questions, because Texas, this would be the best team Texas has played, period. And I stand by that.
I agree 100%, man. No question about
Everybody
it.
asking about my cookies. I have not ate the cookies. There, DGD. I still not ate them. These damn things are holding on. I mean, it's like a whole toenail. They're hanging in there. I'm not going to eat them, but Bulldog snacks, man.
All right. Last thing I got for you, Rusty. Did you or did you not boo Glenn Powell yesterday when he walked out as Chad Powers?
So everybody, so the new media room, Bruce, you can't really hear.
Okay.
So that's one of the things. Listen, it is a great media room at Georgia. Hospitality is great. They're great, but you can't really hear. You have to kind of listen to the mic. I did a show at Georgia State a couple weeks ago, and I was on the radio with Dale McGee. At Georgia State, they had all these signs up. It said South Georgia Catfish. That's the name of the team or something like that. And Hulu was there. So I knew what's going on, but I didn't know they were filming that. But what's funny is they ran out like 4 different takes, and all they did was run onto the field. Crowd booed. I was like, what are they booing? I was like, what's going on? I was like, who is this bunch right here? And then I realized, okay, that's what that is. So they've been filming for a little while in Georgia, especially at Georgia State. It's been their home spot. But I guess the program back in our day, they did some filming at South Carolina, a Gamecock game one time. I saw some comments today. So one of those deals, man. But they got into it, man. They got into it. The crowd got into it. I was like, why are they booing at halftime?
I know. I loved it. I love to hear that. It's the Georgia fans. You want to talk about creating an atmosphere. They brought the atmosphere for Chad Powers. That's for sure.
Yeah, they did.
Guys, big week ahead over at Dawgs HQ. Tons of coverage coming. If you haven't seen it today, man, we got snap judgments. We got we got recruit reactions. Those continue to pour in. We're talking to top players. We've got all your coverage coming for Georgia, Texas this week. And like I said, if you're not a member of Dawgs HQ, just wait till tomorrow morning. Why don't you? We got a little something. Check the Twitter in the morning, and we'll have a little something for you. Okay. Yeah.
Everybody traveling to Austin this week, behave and take some pictures of
mix in a water.
Take some pictures of the barbecue. tag Dawg HQ and everything, and we'll retweet it this week. I want to see that. I want to see the barbecue. I want to see the scenes, and let's see how this thing goes.
Rock and roll. All right, guys. Full coverage, Dawgs HQ. Get over, check us out. Come hang, have some fun on the dog walk with us. We will catch you tomorrow for Bark After Dark. We will be back, and we will have Dawgs HQ Plus on Tuesday, and that should be a really good one, I think. For Rusty Mansell, I'm Jake Roos. We're Dawgs HQ. We'll catch you later.